Hey guys and gals, and welcome back to the Hollywood Rip Studio for episode 20 of the Cardboard Critics Sports Card Podcast, where we go over what cards have been Elizabeth Hurley and bedazzled hot, what cards have been chug-a-slurpee and under 30 seconds brain freeze cold.
Yes.
And what cards you should consider investing in going forward. Let's hop right on into it. It's going to be a bit of a theme this week, unfortunately, in Hot Cards of the Week. But we're going to start with Pete Rose. Of course, you've all heard the news. Pete Rose passing away last week at the age of 83, I believe. But the Cincinnati first baseman, his 1964 Topps All-Star rookie card, we're going to use a PSA 4 for this. And a PSA 4 is up 151% over the past week to $452. That is pretty wild because this was a $170 card 7 days ago. Of course, he's the all-time hits leader in baseball history and famously was banned from baseball for life after being caught betting on his own teams. Pete Rose had a career 303 batting average, 160 home runs, 1,314 RBIs, and 198 stolen bases, with a 7.84 OPS. I feel like Ohtani had that this year.
Not as many hits.
But yeah, we did say he is the all-time hits leader. 4,256 hits to be exact. That is insane.
It's a lot of hitting.
Of course, he was not inducted into the Hall of Fame. Well, I shouldn't say of course. He can still be inducted into the Hall of Fame, even being banned by baseball. But at this point, he would have to be inducted posthumously.
Right.
And Pete Rose was very vocal and very famous for writing letters asking to be forgiven and reconsidered for the Hall of Fame. There was a letter within the last 2 years that he wrote to Rob Manfred asking them to forgive him, right? However, Pete Rose, and I know we're supposed to be sensitive because, you know, he was a legend, he just passed away, but he was not known for having like the best attitude or for being the kindest person.
Not a sweetheart.
No, was not a sweetheart. He signed a lot of baseballs just like this. I don't know if you guys can see this.
It's been there every episode.
But this has been here every episode. And I'm going to put it in this camera because I think it's a little closer. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, if it's fuzzy. Maybe if I hide my face. There you go. That says, "Sorry, I bet on baseball," signed Pete Rose. Okay? That's what this says, is "Sorry, I bet on baseball," signed Pete Rose. Pete Rose, when this whole Ohtani betting thing came out, a few months ago, Pete Rose started signing these, "Sorry, I bet on baseball. Pete Rose, P.S. Ohtani is sorry too." Honestly, in my opinion, that was a pretty classless act.
Yeah.
Considering that this was investigated by the federal government. And so, look. And this is a guy that was pretty open with his friends about betting. And he is on record as saying, like, "Oh, I'll never get caught because I'm above that." Like, look, I understand why these cards are way up. But the fact of the matter is Pete Rose will, in all likelihood, based on his behavior, will never go into the Hall of Fame.
No.
And because of that, he will always kind of be the asterisk on the top of the list, just like Barry Bonds is on the top of the home run list. So this is a $452 card this week. I ain't touching it with a 1,000 million kajillion foot long pole.
Jeez.
It's tragic to lose probably the greatest hitter ever, but what are your thoughts on this Pete Rose card?
I mean, to me, Ichiro's the hit king, right? I mean, look, I just love Ichiro, and he is a legend. He's a bit more of a...
He is a legend.
As a person, too.
Yeah, go ahead and keep talking.
That Rose definitely had some thorns. Look at this angle right here. This is what the people want right here.
Speaking of Ichiro, we did get this pretty cool Shohei Ohtani rookie card with Ichiro right there.
What can I see?
This got a PSA 10, baby.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
How sick is that?
That's very, very cool. Look, we're in a really weird world right now. Pete Rose, like you said, known as sort of just not a wonderful person. Like he spoke his mind, and so take that for what it's worth. We live in this really weird world where betting is so much more just normalized, right?
Right.
And it really just exploded within the last 5 years. And I'm still adjusting to it. I still don't really know how I feel about it. We're beyond inundated every single broadcast with DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, BetESPN. Like, if there's a company out there, we're getting it up the behind on every broadcast, every radio broadcast, every YouTube. Like, no matter what you do, you're getting smacked in the face with betting advertising.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's still really weird to me. Like, I'm not really sure I love it. And so there's the people who are going to say, well, look at all this advertising. Look at how we feel about betting now. And then here's Pete Rose. You cannot bet on the sport that you're in. No. You can't do that. Like, you just cannot do that. And even more so back then when it wasn't normalized. You know? Like, that's just ridiculous. NFL players have been getting hammered for placing bets stupidly within their training facility. They're like, oh, you can see the location of it. Like, you just can't do it. It hurts the integrity. It's even if Pete Rose wasn't betting on the Reds at the time.
Right.
It doesn't matter. He has insider knowledge.
Exactly.
Right? He's one of the greatest hitters who ever lived. He knows these things better than you or I, believe it or not.
There's a reason for it.
He's one of the greatest players who ever lived. He's one of the greatest competitors who ever lived. For God's sake, we watched Manny Machado last night in person not hustle and Manny Machado lazily throw a ball at first base that got away. And you compare the two, it's like, well, what would you rather have? The jerk who plays his butt off or the jerk who doesn't? You know, but he's got to pay the price of his actions.
Yeah.
Or he had to.
Yeah.
You know, rest in peace.
Right.
And that's life. You do something ridiculous and you're going to get slammed on it. And he did. And it doesn't matter. Do you think he really even felt that bad about it? He just knew what he looked like he had to do in order to get back into the Hall of Fame.
I don't know. He just really came off as someone who thought he was invincible. Mm-hmm. He was a little self-centered in what he was doing. And just, it is what it is. This is what happened. And, you know, he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame, obviously. Mm-hmm. I just... Look, there's a reason that these rules are in place, right? Like, I used to work in professional sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you know better than anyone.
I used to watch these players play. It wasn't baseball. I used to watch these players play. I used to be on the court with them every day for hours, and I could tell you what matchups were the good matchups, or who had a better shot of winning this game or this match versus this. There's a reason.
Game doesn't match up well versus.
There's a reason that I'm not allowed to bet on that sport.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's blatantly obvious, and if I did it, I wouldn't ask to be forgiven because I'm an idiot for doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
You know.
That being said, use our code HollywoodRips at Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah. Code HollywoodRips on FanDuel gets you
$5 free play.
It doesn't.
No,
it doesn't.
No.
Moving to our second hot card of the week, though, we said it was going to be a little bit of a pattern, and this one I'm actually sad about because this is a big loss for the sports community. Yeah. And this is Dikembe Mutombo, the center. He played for Denver, Atlanta, Philadelphia, New York, Houston. But his 1991 Upper Deck base rookie draft card in a PSA 10 is up 300%. This week. It is $150 for that card. This was a $35 card a week ago. Of course, the legend tragically died of brain cancer last week. Dikembe Mutombo was the defensive player of his generation.
A force.
Absolute force. He was from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Of course, he was known for his finger wag after blocking shots. The no. I'm sure you guys saw it in some of those commercials as well that he was in. I don't know if it was State Farm or whatever.
I think it was. I feel like I remember a red jersey.
But more importantly, Dikembe Mutombo was was a huge humanitarian. A huge humanitarian back in his home country as well. He opened a $29 million hospital in his hometown of Kinshasa. Kinshasa, I think I'm pronouncing that right. In 2009, he was named the NBA's first ever global ambassador. He served on the board for the CDC, the National Constitution Center, and the Special Olympics International, and the national board at UNICEF. So this guy, as much of a people lover as he was a people pleaser on the court. He averaged 9.8 points per game, 10.3 rebounds, one assist, and 2.8 blocks per game, although he was averaging over 4 blocks a game in his prime. He was inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame in 2015. Rest in peace, Dikembe Mutombo. This PSA 10 is $150. I can tell you this. I probably wouldn't pay $150 for it, but I would way rather have this card than Pete Rose's card.
Yeah, in terms of the people that you would want to surround yourself with.
What do you think?
Memorabilia-wise, Dikembe Mutombo is a prince of a human being, which is a bit of a 180 compared to what we were just talking about a second ago. A great character, just like a character of the game, right?
Yeah.
The advertisements you mentioned, just how he was on the court, the finger wag is iconic.
Yeah.
A great defensive player, not good, a great defensive player when he was out there.
He was generational defensively.
Yeah, the length, the height, not necessarily the muscle. Like when the Lakers played the Sixers in the finals in 2001, Shaq versus Mutombo was kind of tough in terms of pure physical might.
Yeah,
but
let's talk about like the 3-4 best shot blockers we've seen in the past 30 years. It's got to be Mutombo, Shaq, and Wemby.
I mean, one year I'm not going to quite go there. Defense in terms of shot blocking.
He's averaging 4 blocks a game though.
I'd like to see it for more than do I think he will be? Probably. I'm thinking of guys maybe. Dwight Howard was pretty good. Ben Wallace, in terms of defensive players.
Good points.
Wemby will probably.
Probably be there.
Regardless, you talked about it. Mutombo's impact on the international game, probably more so than what he even did on a basketball court, which was still very, very, very Hall of Fame level. Very good. He's the African influence. I know Joel Embiid just played for Team USA in the Olympics, but he is from Africa originally before coming over here to play collegiately in the U.S. That's just one example. You see it up and down the league, up and down the G League in college basketball, and that's a lot of it has to do with Mutombo for sure.
Yeah. It's a real shame to hear this one. This was a tough one. I think we all really loved Mutombo and what he brought to the game, not just on the court, but off the court as well.
The voice, I mean, just
the
whole
voice.
package.
He really had the whole package.
Yeah.
He really had the whole package. I don't have any problems with people buying this card. I think this card deserves some love because Mutombo certainly gave out a lot of love in his lifetime to people that were not able to access it quite so much. But moving on. Now, remember, we're not going to have any more hot cards, but remember that we will see certain baseball cards get really hot in the coming weeks. We will. It's the playoffs, okay? But I urge you, as I've done before, do not buy these cards during the playoffs. If Bryce Harper gets crazy hot, which he just hit a 2-run homer in his last game, don't go running off to buy Bryce Harper cards. Now is not the time. The playoffs are never the time. If you want to buy that card, wait till they're eliminated from the playoffs, okay?
Or January.
December, January. Wait until the offseason. That is when baseball cards are their lowest. Do not be buying baseball cards. If you have baseball cards of guys that are doing well in the playoffs right now, you might consider selling them. But do not buy them. Moving on to cold cards of the week. We have a few honorable mentions. We've talked about them in the past. Luis Angel Acuna, his cards are tanking hard. And I mean hard. And we told you, Luis Angel Acuna is the same size as me.
But you're cuter.
Well, obviously.
Obviously.
But the guy had no pop in the minors, ran into a couple homers in the first week in the majors.
Yep.
This is a less than 12 homer a year power potential guy and like a 40 homer 40 stolen base guy, okay? Like we said before, this dude is Bryce Terang, okay? This is not a card that's going to like skyrocket in the future. Paul Skeens, his cards continuing to move downward. Now I think we'll see a little blip up when he does win Rookie of the Year. There'll be like a little blip, but then it'll come back down. And like we said before, like last week, Ellie De La Cruz's first Bowman Superfractor sells for $360,000. Paul Skeens' sells for $100,000, right? People don't want pitchers. It's too risky. Anthony Richardson, yikes. His cards in 2 weeks are down 60% in 2 weeks. That is wild.
That doesn't really surprise us, though.
No, it doesn't. But that just
That's huge.
Look, it's the quarterback trap. Speaking of which, hot card, cold card, one of the weeks. C.J. Stroud, quarterback for the Houston Texans. His 2023 Prism Silver rookie card in a PSA 10, and his Donruss Optic Downtown in a PSA 10. The Prism Silver is down 35.3% over the first month of the season. $610 for that card. It was $900 plus a month ago. His Optic Downtown in a PSA 10 is down 25.9% over the past month. That is a $3,000 card now. That was a $4,000 card a month ago. What has he done so far in 2024? These stats are not updated with their win today. They did win today.
Congrats.
But he had like 100 rating, and he's not turning the ball over like crazy. The offense has looked a little inconsistent, but I think that also goes with the fact that they have been without a running game now for 3 weeks. Joe Mixon has been out for 3 weeks. That is a big deal. The Texans are 4-1 now. They are 4-1. They are in probably the weakest division in football.
Yeah. I'd say so.
Okay? Mixon will come back. So call me crazy. But I think we're getting awful close to buy time on C.J. Stroud. I think we're getting awful close. What are your thoughts on C.J. Stroud right now?
Yeah, for sure. C.J. Stroud is a cold card in that it technically is going down. But he's a stud. I think perhaps people are moving on to the shiny new toy that's going on in Washington right now.
Right.
The Heisman winner out of LSU, whose name we won't talk about because it's not his time. But C.J. Stroud's great. He's having good games. He had a bad game against the Vikings a few weeks ago, but what are you going to do? The Purple People Eaters are a buzzsaw at the moment.
Yeah. They're the best team in the NFL.
And so I'm not going to be out on C.J. Stroud unless I'm like really just beaten over the head with it. And he's starting to like not do well. But today, 300 yards, yes, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but they won. He throws a beautiful ball. He's got toys. I mean, the guy's great. It's also still just his second year, and like, what are we doing here? He's really, really good. And I kind of liked their alternate uniforms today. Not important, I know, but I had to say it. I had to say it.
Yeah.
So
Look,
he's an excellent player.
Look, sure, maybe C.J. Stroud prices were a little inflated to start the year, maybe.
Probably.
But the fact that this silver's down 35% and the downtown's down 26% over the past month, I mean, this silver price now, his PSA 10 rookie silver price is now like, it's like $100 more than Jalen Hurts now.
Yeah, they're not in the same class.
Whereas,
to me,
and like Justin Herbert is still a $1,000 silver. Like C.J. Stroud is better than Justin Herbert at this point.
See, I don't know about that.
I think he is.
You do? If you were starting a franchise, who would you take? Both of them perfectly healthy.
Perfectly healthy? I mean, it's close. It's close. But I would probably take C.J. Stroud.
I would take Herbert.
Okay.
Perfectly healthy?
Okay,
Yeah.
but would you pay... I think last time we checked on Herbert, I think it was $1,200 for a PSA 10 silver. That is double what C.J. Stroud is selling for right now.
Sure.
Is he twice as good of a quarterback? No.
Twice as good, probably. I think he's got the potential to be.
And then furthermore, Joe Burrow is at 2,000.
I do think Joe Burrow is that good. I think he's in a bad
Like,
organization.
am I crazy for thinking C.J. Stroud is undervalued at $600 when he has Joe Mixon in the backfield coming back and he has the best receiving core in the NFL?
Am I contradicting myself by saying I agree with you? He is still being undervalued. I don't think so, right? Like I can say that Justin Herbert I think is better. I would take Joe Burrow, but C.J. Stroud's still being undervalued.
But Justin Herbert has nothing around him. Nothing.
You're not a Lad McConkey guy?
No.
That lad?
No, not that lad. Not that Quentin Johnson either.
No, I'm
but we
not.
gotta
I'm
move
not a
to
Quentin
our
Johnson guy at all.
to our next cold card, and that is Washington Nationals outfielder Dylan Cruz.
What a lad!
His 2024 Bowman first autograph and non-autographs, really. But his PSA 10 autograph is down 28% to $325 over the past month. It is $450. That card was $450 a month ago. Excuse me.
Debut bump.
$325 now. PSA 9 is down 19% to $148. The raw autograph is down 38% to $133 per card. The non-autograph PSA 10 is down 24% to $31.25. What did Dylan Cruz do in 31 games after getting called up to the majors in his true freshman season? He hit .218 with 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, and a .641 OPS in 119 plate appearances. This sample size is tiny, honestly.
Yes.
He's 22 years old and was the most polished player in the draft last year as a hitter, no doubt. That's why he was drafted second
Overall.
after his teammate, Paul Skeens. He hit .270 with 13 homers, 68 RBIs, 25 steals, and a nearly 800 OPS in his first year in the minors. If you're asking me, I think Dylan Cruz will be fine. I think he's going to be a very good power speed combo guy.
Do you?
In the future. I think Dylan Cruz will be a 260 to 280 hitter. I think he's going to hit 20 to 25 homers and drive in 80 RBIs while stealing 35, way more than 35. This guy's probably going to steal darn close to, I don't know.
Well, you're about
Well,
to,
yeah,
you,
let's say
the
35.
much farther you can go from 35 is 50. And as
Yeah.
we saw, that's a big deal.
Let's go 35. Let's go 35. I think he's going to be like a 20 plus, 80 plus, 30 plus guy with like a 260 to 280 average, which in my opinion is a very good player.
Yeah.
And I think these prices are going to continue to come down in the offseason. And if you want it, I think you should pick it up and target this card when it hits around the $250 mark for the PSA 10. For the PSA 10 auto, when it's like really winter doldrums for baseball in like December. What are your thoughts on Dylan Cruz?
So he got burnt by his cup of coffee in the majors, right?
Yeah.
Not the first that'll happen to, or that has happened to. Won't be the last. So in that theory, yeah, he should be all right. If you want to take the negative spin on things, which I'm never afraid to do,
Right.
I will say this. You could say that he's actually done worse as he's bumped up in levels.
Okay.
High A to double A to triple A. Although, and then obviously in the big leagues he did much worse.
Right.
And that's regardless of sample size. He basically had an equal amount of time in double A to triple A this year before getting his call up. In double A, where the talent is better, and as I've said on the show before, and I'm not the only person to say this, double A is where you really learn about a prospect. The best prospects are down there. Triple A is basically guys who are on the shuttle back and forth before they get DFA'd. To be honest, it's the minor leaguers who can't catch a place in the big league roster and will probably get traded, or it's those big leaguers who are just hanging on by a thread. And in AAA, in Double A, he was basically an average player, a 700 OPS or right around there. In AAA, and this is where I'll back you up on what you said. He did have a smidge more power. He bumped it up to about 8 home runs in not a lot of time. So, this is what I'll default to. More times than not, the scouts and the teams are right. If you're being drafted second overall in the draft, you're probably pretty good. Will you be a superstar? No guarantees.
Right.
And that's kind of what you need out of drafting there. But if you get a serviceable guy who's going to play every single day for about 10 years, that's really not that bad. And then you hope that C.J. Abrams pops. You hope that Mackenzie Gore continues to rise. You hope that Keibert Ruiz kind of rediscovers why he was a top prospect for a second. And James Wood. You hope that James Wood also continues to pop.
Yeah.
And then it's fine.
You know who I think Dylan Cruz kind of reminds me of?
Lane Thomas?
How did you know I was going to say that?
I legit didn't.
How did you know I was going to say that?
I just guessed.
Wow. We did not plan that.
No,
I was going to say, Lane Thomas, it's like what I just said were his like potential metrics. That's like the floor metrics of Lane Thomas.
You know why I thought that?
Why? Because he replaced him there?
White guy, Washington Nationals.
Right-handed batter. Yeah. He reminds me of Lane Thomas, who Lane Thomas is, as we saw in the playoffs already this year, is a very valuable piece.
Just hit a home run yesterday.
Just hit a homer yesterday. But he's like a 260 guy. He's going to hit 25 homers. He's not going to steal 35 bases,
No.
though, which is where I think Dylan Cruz has the leg up. He's also only 22. But we got to keep moving.
How about that?
To our invest segment, feeling 22.
No, I'm talking about the Lane Thomas thing.
Yeah, I know, that was crazy too. Our invest segment, and today we are going to talk about Oklahoma City Thunder guard SGA Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Sega.
His 2018 Prism Silver and a PSA 10 is down 32.6% over
ridiculous.
the past 2 months. The offseason has not treated his cards kindly. Offseason never treats anyone's cards kindly. But
Fair.
Let's keep this in mind, okay, guys? The Oklahoma City were the number 1 seed in the West last year. The number 1 seed in the West last year. They added Alex Caruso, who is a great defender, something that they felt they needed to address, perimeter defense. They have one of the best home court advantages in the NBA. The other top teams in the West have made major, and I mean major, changes to their roster. And yes, they're going to have the whole season to figure it out. But the Wolves just traded Cat
Shocking.
to the Knicks. They are getting Julius Randle back and Dante DiVincenzo back. The Nuggets are officially conducting the Russell Westbrook experiment, which, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, anyone who has conducted the Russell Westbrook experiment has failed in recent memory.
There's like 7 teams now in his wake. It's like, well, if it couldn't work for them, maybe
us. So call me crazy, but I think the Wolves and the Nuggets are way more of a question mark going into next year than they have been in the past year or two.
Yeah.
And the Warriors and the Lakers, realistically, are not threats anymore. No. So, look, SGA averaged 30.2 points a game last year, 7.2 rebounds, 6.4 assists, and this one might be shocking to you because he's a guard.
Yeah, he's a big point guard.
He is a big point guard. He shot 49.6% from the field that year. That is big man numbers.
Yeah.
From the field. Usually guards shoot like 43 to 45% from the field. This dude is shooting 50% from the field at 26 years old. He has Jalen Williams to his side. He has Chet Holmgren to his side.
Yeah.
These are elite young players with the best home court advantage in basketball. So call me insane, but I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is criminally, and I mean criminally, undervalued, especially at this time. Now keep in mind, with hoop season coming up in just 3 weeks, these cards are going to start ticking up in price. And they will start ticking up in price probably because you guys are all watching this and saying, oh my God, you guys are so right. By the way, we do not give investment advice.
No. Disclaimer.
But what are your thoughts on SGA cards?
Did we forget, 30.2 points per game last year? That's averaging 30 points per game to me is like, oh my God, that's insane. And then you realize, that's 4th in the league. So yeah, this is an MVP player. Yep. And this is a guy that the Clippers are sitting there at their new, spanking new arena in Inglewood.
Intuit Dome.
And who's the guy that the Intuit Dome? I mean, it looks pretty sick.
Yeah, I've heard though it looks like you're gonna fall off when you're in the top because it's so steep.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I've heard.
As a person with issues with heights and kind of a little bit of vertigo,
Do not sit on the top.
I will not.
Do not. You literally feel like you're about to fall down a mountain.
All right, well, I don't like to leave my house anyway, so that's fine. I live in this studio. They traded Sega.
Yes, they did.
And basically every pick that's ever existed for Paul George, who is no longer on the team, and barely played as it is. At the time, it was like, well, you got to give something up to get something.
Yeah.
But man, does that look stupid right now? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Canadian national team, is amazing. The field goal percentage is very high because he does play sort of like a power forward down in the post. He's not afraid to get down low and get a little dirty. But his 3-point numbers, not that bad.
Dude.
He picks and chooses his moments,
Like
35%.
Yeah, 36, 37%.
He once shot 42% in a season, so it's in there. He's just maturing. He's figuring out his game, and they're starting to build around him. Why this is low ever is beyond me. First team All-NBA. Undoubtedly one of the best players in the league right now. I'm a huge SGA guy. I loved him his rookie year at the Clippers. He was kind of underrated. And the Thunder know what they're doing. They're like, that needs to be the piece we get back for Paul George.
Talk about a team that knows how to develop players.
Truly. Sam Presti. Is it Sam Presti still there?
I think he's still there.
He's the guy's amazing.
it up.
I'll double check right now.
But yeah, I'm right there with you. Look, give Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren another year of improvement.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, Sam Presti's unbelievable the way they've put these teams together over the years. And the Thunder you always have to look at from the perspective of the level of play and development as well as the fans. Like, this is a really hard building to go in and play.
It's a college
at.
atmosphere.
I mean, it is a brutal building.
I've seen the game there.
Yeah, ask anyone, any visiting team that has gone to OKC, and it is brutal to play in that building. But as I was saying before, SGA is only 26. He's still getting better. There are two more budding superstars on this team. Jalen Williams is still getting better. This is a dude who's averaging 20 a game.
You have to define. There's two Jalen Williams on the team.
You know which one I'm talking about. You guys all know which one I'm talking about. Chet Holmgren is very good. Stretches the floor well. I mean, blocks a lot of shots. I mean, they got Alex Caruso now to help shore up this defense. I think if I'm predicting who's finishing first in the West this year, top of the list for me is the Thunder again. It just is. Unless the Russell Westbrook experiment turns out well for the Nuggets, which hasn't turned out well for every other superstar that's played with him since he was in,
Oklahoma City.
Guess where? OKC was the only people that could figure out how to take him to the finals. SGA is a buy right now, guys. Bottom line. And it is not going to get any cheaper than it is right now. Unless he gets hurt.
He is day to day, which might be.
He's day to day.
But he's got 3 weeks, so it's fine.
Yeah, he's got 3 weeks to get ready for the season. I think SGA is a huge invest buy card going into this season. Super undervalued. But that'll do it for us here for episode 20 of the Cardboard Critics Sports Card Podcast. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. Remember, if you did, to like, comment, subscribe down below. Remember, your subscription is really what helps us moving forward as we continue to rocket towards 500 of you beautiful subscribers. So thanks so much for subscribing if you have done so. So until next time, I'm Mr. Hollywood. That's Joe Nasty, and we'll see you right back here next week at Hollywood Rips. Mr. Hollywood, Joe Nasty, Audi 2000.